Yeah.
It's been 53 years, so
I mean, it could be a 50.
it could be another 53-year wait. So I would say,
Ouch.
I would say take on all opportunities and
Kevin Durant just told Jalen Brunson, point blank, that the Knicks might not see another championship for 53 more years, and the room laughed. But he wasn't really joking. That's the headline tonight, gang, alongside a genuinely feel-good update from Tyrese Halliburton on his health after a scary stretch with shingles earlier this offseason. Let's get into both stories in full detail, because there's a lot more nuance here than the headlines first suggest. For more than 5 decades, the Knicks were one of the NBA's biggest stories without the biggest prize to actually show for it. Every season opened with sky-high expectations in New York, every playoff run brought renewed hope across the fan base, and every disappointment hit even harder because of everything the franchise historically represented. Before this year, New York had gone 53 years since its last championship, dating all the way back to 1973, one of the longest title droughts of any major franchise across professional basketball. Generations of Knicks fans grew up hearing stories about the old glory days from their parents and grandparents instead of actually living through a new one themselves. That's exactly what made this year different. The Knicks beat the San Antonio Spurs in 5 games to win the 2026 NBA Finals, with Jalen Brunson putting up an absolutely massive 45 points in the closeout Game 5 on the road, scoring 15 of those points in the final stretch of the fourth quarter alone to seal the win. Brunson walked away with the Finals MVP after averaging 32.6 points per game across the series, and the moment carried extra weight given his path, a second-round pick who spent years fighting perceptions about his size and whether he could ever truly be a franchise point guard in a league still dominated by giants. This wasn't just another team adding another banner to the rafters. This was one of basketball's most historically star-crossed franchises, finally delivering on decades of pent-up expectation. Madison Square Garden became the epicenter of the basketball world again, almost overnight. The championship parade packed the streets of Manhattan, with fans from every corner of the 5 boroughs, and the conversation around the entire league quickly shifted to one single question: what happens next for New York? One of the very first people asked about it directly was Tyrese Halliburton. He was actually at his own basketball camp when reporters brought up the Knicks title, which made for a particularly interesting moment given Indiana had battled New York hard in the playoffs this past season, and several Knicks players are genuinely close personal friends of his away from the court. Halliburton's response was short, simple, and completely genuine. He said plainly, "Good for them," before reporters followed up asking whether he'd personally reached out to anyone on that championship roster. He mentioned he'd talked to Mikal Bridges specifically to congratulate him. No bitterness in his tone, no deflection, no trying to make the moment about himself or his own team's playoff disappointment. Just a clean, respectful nod toward a friend who had finally reached the top of the basketball mountain after years of grinding alongside him. It's exactly the kind of moment that tends to remind fans that underneath all the on-court competitiveness, a lot of these players genuinely respect and care about each other away from the actual games. The bigger story from that same camp appearance, though, ended up being Halliburton's health update and gang. This is the part Pacers fans had genuinely been worried about for months. Fans had noticed visible swelling in his face during videos circulating earlier in the offseason, sparking real concern across social media about exactly how serious his shingles diagnosis actually was underneath the surface. Shingles isn't a condition people typically associate with a professional athlete in his mid-20s, and Halliburton spoke candidly and openly about how much the entire situation had physically affected him during that stretch. He described feeling like he's finally back to operating as a fully healthy NBA player again, even joking lightly about how different he looks now compared to those earlier videos. That kind of statement matters more than it might initially sound, because most professional athletes are typically managing at least some kind of nagging issue by the time a long NBA season wraps up. Hearing someone confidently describe themselves as fully healthy again is a genuinely rare thing to hear from anyone at this level. He also spoke about how meaningful it felt just to be able to run his own camp and spend time directly with kids without every single conversation circling back to his health status or his rehab timeline. He admitted that after everything he dealt with over the past 12 months, he doesn't take that kind of normalcy for granted anymore, and it's clear that perspective came directly from going through a genuinely difficult and uncertain stretch with his health. Now to the other major story making the rounds across basketball media this week: Kevin Durant's comments specifically about the Knicks and Brunson's future. Speaking at a Wall Street Journal Live event held in Cannes, France, Durant was asked directly what advice he'd give Brunson now that he's officially become the unquestioned face of basketball in New York City, with endorsement deals, sponsorship offers, and advertising opportunities reportedly pouring in from every direction following the championship run. Durant didn't hesitate for even a second. He told Brunson plainly to strike while the iron's hot. explaining that this is a moment he genuinely doesn't believe New Yorkers, or the Knicks organization as a whole, can simply assume is going to come back around easily or quickly. When the interviewer reminded him that the previous title drought had already stretched a brutal 53 years, Durant's response landed even harder. "It could be another 53-year wait," he said. The room reportedly broke into laughter in that exact moment, but the line spread across social media almost instantly afterward regardless, with reactions splitting sharply into two very different camps. Some fans took the comment as Durant simply being brutally honest about how genuinely difficult championships are to actually win at this level, pointing out that plenty of Hall of Fame caliber players spend entire careers chasing one single ring and never actually get there, no matter how talented they are individually. Other fans felt the comment read more like a backhanded compliment dressed up as advice, with several people online suggesting it sounded like Durant was subtly implying the Knicks' title run was closer to a fluke than a sustainable new era. That criticism picked up even more traction online given Durant's own complicated history with New York, having previously spurned the Knicks in free agency to sign elsewhere before eventually landing with his current team. Durant didn't stop there though, and the rest of his actual comments were considerably warmer in tone than that one headline-grabbing line suggested. He specifically praised Brunson for staying true to himself throughout his entire career path, describing his identity as something built almost entirely around grinding from the bottom up regardless of outside doubt. He pointed directly to Brunson's path as a second-round pick who spent years answering pointed questions about his size and whether he could realistically ever become a true franchise-level point guard, eventually proving doubters wrong by becoming both a champion and finals MVP in the biggest market in the league. Durant went on to emphasize that making history specifically in New York City carries a fundamentally different kind of weight than simply being a star anywhere else in the league, framing it as the real difference between being a great basketball player and becoming an actual legend within one of basketball's most demanding, most historically significant markets. He closed his comments by encouraging Brunson to take every meaningful opportunity coming his way right now, listen carefully to all of them, and ultimately figure out which ones genuinely resonate with who he actually is as a person. Looking at both interviews side by side, there's a clear, shared theme running underneath them even though the two situations couldn't be more different on the surface. Halliburton talked openly about appreciating his own health again after months of real, lingering uncertainty surrounding his condition. Durant talked about appreciating a championship window specifically while it remains open, because absolutely nothing in professional sports is ever truly guaranteed to last, no matter how dominant a team or player looks in a given moment. Two completely different circumstances, but ultimately the same underlying lesson for anyone watching. Don't take any of it for granted, whether it's your physical health, your career trajectory, or your specific shot at making real basketball history. And somewhere directly in the middle of both of these conversations stands Jalen Brunson himself, now carrying both the genuine weight and the rare privilege of officially being the face of basketball in New York City. The real question now becomes what comes next for everyone involved. Can the Knicks actually turn this single championship into the beginning of a sustained, multi-year era of contention? Can Halliburton return fully healthy and help push Indiana toward an even deeper playoff run next season? And will Kevin Durant's blunt, somewhat ominous prediction about how genuinely rare championships are end up looking remarkably smart a few years down the line, or will it simply be remembered as an offhand comment that didn't age particularly well? Those specific answers obviously won't come overnight, gang. But one thing is already abundantly clear after this week: the NBA offseason isn't just about trades and free agency rumors anymore. Sometimes the absolute biggest storylines come from simple, candid conversations that genuinely reveal how these players actually think and feel once the cameras start rolling. So now I want to hear directly from you. Chat, was Kevin Durant right to frame this championship as a rare, once-in-a-generation opportunity for the Knicks? Or do you think Jalen Brunson and New York are just getting started on something much bigger? Let me know exactly where you stand down in the comments section below. Don't forget to like the video if you enjoyed this breakdown, and subscribe for more NBA stories every single day.